If you've ever felt like your husband thinks about sex way too much, or like he uses sex to solve problems that have nothing to do with the bedroom, you're not alone, and you're not wrong. A lot of wives carry a quiet frustration, sometimes even guilt, because they don't understand why sex feels so urgent to their husband, why he gets distant when it's been a while, why he seems to treat it even when things between you two aren't great. And honestly, a lot of men don't even have the words to explain it. They just know they want it. They just know something feels off when it's missing. So, the two of you are living in the same house, in the same bed, and experiencing two completely different realities. Dear wives, the way your husband experiences sex, it's not what you think it is. It is not just physical. It is not just about desire. For most men, sex is the primary way they feel emotionally connected to you. It is how they experience love. And until a wife understands that, really understands it, she'll keep reading his need for sex as selfishness. And he'll keep reading her reluctance as rejection. And the gap between you will keep growing. Today, I want to open the door into how men actually think about sex, the real psychology behind it. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand your husband in a way you probably never have before. Sex is how men feel loved, not just desired. Let me ask you something. When was the last time your husband sat down with a friend and talked through his feelings? When did he last call his brother and say, "I've been feeling disconnected lately. I need to talk"? For most men, that doesn't happen, not because they don't have feelings, but because most men were never given a language for their emotions. They were raised to perform, to provide, to push through. Vulnerability was a liability. Feelings were something you handled privately, or not at all. So where does all of that emotional need go? It goes into physical intimacy. For most men, sex is not separate from emotional connection. It is the emotional connection. It is the one place where he feels safe enough to be vulnerable, to be close, to let his guard down completely. Dr. Gary Chapman, who wrote The 5 Love Languages, identified physical touch as one of the 5 primary ways people give and receive love. For a large percentage of men, it ranks at the very top. That means when your husband reaches for you, what he is actually saying, underneath all of it, is, "I love you. Do you still love me?" He is not just asking for a physical act. He is asking for reassurance that the most important relationship in his life is still secure. He just doesn't have the words for it, so it comes out as desire. Think about it this way. When things are good between the two of you, when you've had a great sex week, laughed together, been kind to each other, does he seem more relaxed, more present, more like himself? That is not a coincidence. Emotional safety and physical intimacy are connected for him in a very direct way. And on the flip side, when intimacy has been absent for a while, you may notice he becomes quieter, a little withdrawn, maybe irritable. Maybe he throws himself into work or his phone. That's not him being childish. That is a man who is slowly feeling unseen in his own marriage, and he doesn't know how to say it out loud. Now, I want to be very clear about something. Understanding this does not mean you are responsible for managing his emotions through sex. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is this. When you understand that his need for physical intimacy is rooted in a need for connection and love, it completely changes how you respond to it. It stops feeling like a demand, and it starts feeling like an invitation. Understanding how your husband is wired is not the same as excusing everything he does. Knowledge is not a free pass, but it is a foundation. And right now, I want to give you that foundation, because a lot of what feels confusing or even hurtful about his behavior has a real biological explanation. Let's start with testosterone. Men produce roughly 10 to 20 times more testosterone than women. This is not an opinion, it is endocrinology. And testosterone is the primary hormone that drives sexual desire. It is produced daily. It peaks in the morning. And for most men, it creates a consistent background level of sexual awareness that women whose desire is more cyclical and context-driven often don't experience the same way. Yes, 10 to 20 times more than women. This doesn't mean he has no self-control. It means his baseline is genuinely different from yours. When he reaches for you in the morning and you're still half asleep, he is not being inconsiderate of your tiredness. He is operating from a body that woke up with desire already running. That's his normal. It's not a character flaw. It's physiology. For women, emotional closeness typically comes before physical desire. You need to feel connected to want intimacy. For men, research on oxytocin shows the pathway often works in reverse. Physical intimacy is what produces the feeling of emotional closeness. He connects through touch first. The feeling follows the act. Now here's the one that surprises most women. When a woman is stressed, her brain typically needs to process, to talk, to decompress, to feel emotionally safe before she can even think about intimacy. Most wives know this about themselves intuitively. But for many men, the opposite is true. Sex is how he decompresses. Neurologically, sexual intimacy triggers the release of oxytocin and dopamine, hormones that lower cortisol, which is the body's primary stress chemical. So, when your husband has had a brutal day at work and he still reaches for you that night, he is not being oblivious to your exhaustion. In his body, intimacy is the reset button. It is genuinely how he recovers. She needs to feel close to have sex. He has sex to feel close. This is one of the most important sentences in any marriage, and almost no one tells couples this before they get married. So, what does all these mean for your marriage? Let's put this together. Your husband wakes up with high testosterone. He processes emotional stress through physical intimacy. He bonds through touch first and feels the emotional connection after. And he is visually wired in a way that means your physical presence genuinely moves him. Not just aesthetically, but emotionally. None of that makes him an animal. None of that means you have no say in your own body. What it means is that the two of you are wired differently. And when you stop expecting him to experience desire the way you do, and he stops expecting you to respond the way he does, you can finally stop fighting about it and start actually understanding each other. When a man is consistently rejected sexually by his wife, not once, not occasionally, but consistently, something happens inside him that goes far beyond frustration. He starts to believe something is wrong with him, that he is too much, that he is unwanted, that he is alone inside his own marriage. Remember, most men, sex is not just physical. It is how he feels loved. So when that is repeatedly withheld, even without any intention to hurt, what he experiences is not just sexual deprivation. What he experiences is emotional rejection. Every time feels like you are saying, "I don't want you. You are not my type." He will almost never say this out, because to say it out would require a level of vulnerability that most men have never been taught to access. So instead, he goes silent. And silence in a man is rarely peace. It is almost always pain that has run out of ways to speak. Here is what the research on male sexual rejection tells us, and this is important. When a man is turned down repeatedly, many men don't just feel unwanted, they feel ashamed. Shame about their body, shame about their desire, shame that they still want a wife who doesn't seem to want them back. And shame is one of the most corrosive emotions in a marriage, because it doesn't ask for help. It hides, it hardens, it builds walls. And when a man reaches that place, you tend to see a predictable pattern play out in 4 stages. First, he keeps initiating and keeps getting rejected. He tells himself it's just timing, just stress, just a season. Second, he starts to initiate less. Not because he wants less, but because the rejection hurts too much to keep risking it. Third, he stops initiating almost entirely. He has trained himself to expect no. He would rather feel nothing than feel rejected again. And fourth, he disconnects. From you, from the marriage, sometimes from himself. This is the stage where marriages become roommate situations, where 2 people share a home and children and a calendar, but no longer share themselves, where the word fine becomes the answer to everything, where the distance feels normal because it has been there so long, and both people are lonely, but neither one knows how to cross back over. Now here's what I want you to hear. A lot of wives see their husband's withdrawal and interpret it as him not caring anymore. They think, he's given up on us. He doesn't love me the way he used to. And so she pulls away too. And now you have two people both feeling unloved, both feeling unseen, both waiting for the other one to reach first, and neither one reaching. But in most cases, his withdrawal is not indifference. It is self-protection. There is a difference between a man who doesn't love you and a man who loves you so much that the pain of feeling unwanted by you has become too heavy to keep carrying openly. One of those men has given up. The other one is still there, just buried, and he is waiting, without knowing how to say it, for a reason to come back. I am not saying this to make you feel guilty. Guilt changes nothing. I am saying this because understanding what is happening inside him is the first step toward changing what is happening between you. So, you now understand why he needs it physically and emotionally. You understand what is happening in his body and his brain. And you understand what consistent rejection actually costs him and costs your marriage. The question now is, what do you do with all of this? Because knowledge without action is just interesting information. This video has been about understanding your husband, but understanding is not the same as submission. You are not required to want what you don't want. Your needs, your body, your emotional state, they matter completely. A healthy marriage is never one person endlessly giving while the other endlessly takes. What I am inviting you into is something different. Not obligation, not performance, but intentionality. Choosing to show up for your marriage, not because you have to, but because you understand now what is actually at stake. Because you understand that the man sitting across from you at dinner has a language for love that you now speak. And speaking someone's love language is one of the most powerful things you can do in a marriage. Number 1, stop treating intimacy as a reward. Start treating it as a foundation. Many couples fall into a pattern where sex only happens when everything else is already good. When the house is clean, the kids are settled, you're not stressed, and you haven't had an argument in 3 days. But for your husband, intimacy is not the reward at the end of a good week. It is part of what creates a good week. When you lead with connection, when you don't wait for everything to be perfect first, you will be shocked at how quickly his mood, his presence, and his emotional availability shift toward you. Number 2, let him know he is wanted, not just tolerated. There is a difference between a wife who agrees to intimacy and a wife who initiates it. Between a wife who is present and a wife who is enthusiastic. Your husband does not just need sex, he needs to feel desired. He needs to know that you want him, not just that you are willing to be there. This does not mean performing something you don't feel. It means that when you are choosing to show up fully. A touch on his arm when you walk past him. A text in the middle of the day that tells him you're thinking about him. These small signals carry enormous weight because they answer the question. He is always quietly asking, does she really care about how I feel? Number 3, have the honest conversation. Out of bed. If intimacy has been a source of tension in your marriage, it needs to be talked about, not in the moment of rejection, and not in the middle of an argument, but in a calm, connected moment when you are both settled. Tell him what you need in order to feel more present. Ask him what intimacy means to him, not to debate it, but to genuinely understand it. Many couples have never had this conversation with clarity and without defensiveness. The ones who do almost always find that the real problem was not desire, it was distance. And distance can always be crossed when both people are willing to move. Number 4, address what is blocking you and take it seriously. If you find yourself consistently uninterested in intimacy or consistently avoiding it, that is worth paying attention to. It could be hormonal, it could be exhaustion, it could be unresolved resentment that has never been named out loud. It could be something from your past that you have never fully dealt with. All of those things are real, and all of them deserve real attention, not dismissal. Low libido is not a moral failure. But it is a signal, and the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for your marriage is to take that signal seriously. Whether that means seeing a doctor, a therapist, or simply beginning an honest conversation with your husband about where you actually are. The goal is not a perfect sex life. The goal is a marriage where both of you feel chosen, where both of you feel known, where neither of you is quietly starving for something the other one doesn't realize they need to give. Your husband is not a mystery you will never solve. He is a man who loves you and does not always know how to say it except through wanting to be physically intimate with you. And you are a woman who loves him and does not always feel seen in the way you need to be seen. The two of you are not opposites. You are just two people with different languages, and you are learning each other's. If this video gave you something, a new way of seeing your husband, share it. Send it to a friend who needs it. I will see you in the next one.